The crack of a pistol shatters the air. A man in the crowd clutches his chest, but it is not a gesture of patriotic fervor. He has just been shot. This isn't a scene from a political thriller, it's a moment from American history. The year was 1912. The man was Theodore Roosevelt, no longer president but campaigning for a third term. He was on his way to give a speech in Milwaukee. John Schrank, a saloon-keeper driven by delusions, fired a Colt .38 revolver at point-blank range. The bullet tore through Roosevelt's overcoat, his steel-rimmed glasses case, and the 50 pages of his folded speech before lodging in his chest. Instead of collapsing, Roosevelt did something extraordinary. He felt the wound, coughed into his hand to check for blood in his lungs, and seeing none, insisted on proceeding to the auditorium. "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible," he began his address to the shocked audience. "I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot." He spoke for over 80 minutes, the blood-stained manuscript held in his hand, a stark visual testament to the thin line separating a leader from an assassin's bullet. His survival was a near miracle, a story of grit and sheer luck, but it was also a chilling reminder of a dark undercurrent in the American political landscape. That single, slowed bullet serves as a powerful metaphor for the nation's own precarious history with political violence. It highlights a fundamental vulnerability that has haunted the presidency since its inception. The very accessibility that defines American democracy, the handshakes, the rallies, the open motorcades, creates the opportunity for attack. The first documented attempt occurred in 1835, when a house painter named Richard Lawrence aimed 2 pistols at Andrew Jackson. Incredibly, both misfired. Jackson, enraged, proceeded to beat the would-be assassin with his cane. These early incidents were seen as anomalies, the acts of madmen. But they were precursors to a far more tragic and violent pattern that would emerge. These attacks are not just historical footnotes, they are seismic events that have repeatedly shaken the country to its core. They force a national confrontation with the hatred and division that can fester beneath the surface of civil society. Each attempt, whether successful or failed, poses difficult questions about security, freedom, and the very nature of public life for those who lead the nation. The story of Roosevelt's speech, delivered with a bullet in his chest, is not just about one man's toughness. It is about a nation's ongoing struggle to protect its leaders without sacrificing the democratic ideals they are meant to represent, a struggle that continues to this very day. 4 times an assassin's attack has succeeded. 4 times the United States has buried a president killed in office. The first was Abraham Lincoln, the leader who had just guided the nation through its bloodiest conflict. On April 14, 1865, just 5 days after the Civil War effectively ended, Lincoln sought a moment of respite at Ford's Theater. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and fervent Confederate sympathizer, saw an opportunity not for entertainment, but for vengeance. He slipped into the presidential box, fired a single shot into the back of Lincoln's head, and leaped onto the stage, shouting, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. The nation, poised for healing, was instead plunged back into grief and chaos. Just 16 years later, the horror repeated itself. President James A. Garfield was walking through a Washington, D.C. railroad station in July 1881. He was preparing to travel for a summer vacation. Charles Guiteau, a mentally unstable man who believed he was owed a political appointment for his supposed help in Garfield's election, approached from behind. He fired 2 shots, one grazing the president's arm, the other lodging in his back. Garfield did not die immediately. For 80 agonizing days, he lingered while doctors probed the wound with unsterilized fingers and instruments, introducing the infection that would ultimately kill him. His death was a tragedy born of both a gunman's delusion and the primitive state of medicine. The turn of the century brought no end to the violence. In 1901, President William McKinley was greeting the public at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. It was a classic scene of American politics, the leader mixing with the people. Among those in the receiving line was Leon Czolgosz, an anarchist who saw all government as oppressive. He had a pistol concealed in a handkerchief wrapped around his hand. When he reached the president, he fired twice at close range. McKinley died 8 days later. This assassination directly led to a fundamental change. Congress formally tasked the U.S. Secret Service, originally created to fight currency counterfeiting, with the full-time protection of American presidents. The most infamous and culturally scarring assassination came on November 22, 1963. President John F. Kennedy was riding in an open-top limousine, his motorcade winding through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. The crowds were cheering, the sun was shining, and the charismatic young president seemed the very picture of American vitality. Then, rifle shots echoed across the plaza. Kennedy was struck in the head and neck, dying almost instantly. The alleged assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was a former Marine with communist sympathies. Though the official Warren Commission concluded he acted alone, the event spawned a universe of conspiracy theories that reflect the nation's profound difficulty in accepting that a lone, insignificant man could so drastically alter the course of history. The assassination of JFK was not an end, but a dark continuation. The decades that followed were punctuated by close calls that reminded the Secret Service and the public just how persistent the threat remained. In 1975, President Gerald Ford faced two separate attempts in just 17 days. First, a follower of Charles Manson, Lynette Squeaky Fromm, pointed a pistol at him in Sacramento. Then, Sarah Jane Moore, another troubled individual, fired a shot that was deflected by a bystander in San Francisco. 6 years later, in 1981, John Hinckley Jr. shot and severely wounded President Ronald Reagan outside a Washington hotel, seeking to impress an actress. Reagan's survival, much like Roosevelt's, seemed almost miraculous, a testament to his own resilience and rapid medical care. These events demonstrated that the motivations for attack were evolving. While early assassins were often driven by political grievances or personal vendettas, a new breed of attacker emerged, driven by delusion, a desire for fame, or a nihilistic rage against the system. The targets were not just presidents, but also those seeking the office. In 1968, the nation was stunned when Senator Robert F. Kennedy, on the verge of securing the Democratic presidential nomination, was shot and killed by Sirhan Sirhan in a Los Angeles hotel pantry. His death, just months after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, felt like a devastating blow to a generation's hope for change, proving that the path to the White House was as perilous as the office itself. This long, violent history found a shocking echo in 2024. Former President Donald Trump, in the midst of a contentious campaign, became the first president or former president shot since Reagan. During a rally near Butler, Pennsylvania, a 20-year-old man fired a rifle from a rooftop over 100 yards away. The bullet grazed Trump's ear before he was hurried off stage. The shooter was killed by Secret Service counter-snipers, but the incident sent a shock wave through the country, a visceral reminder of the political violence of the past. It was a chilling affirmation that in a deeply polarized nation, the rhetoric of political conflict could spill over into actual bloodshed with terrifying speed. The threat did not end there. Just 2 months later, another plot unfolded. An armed man, Ryan Ruth, was discovered by a Secret Service agent in what was described as a sniper's nest in the brush overlooking Trump's Florida golf course. The man fled but was apprehended, and prosecutors later revealed he had a loaded rifle and had written a letter stating his intent to assassinate the former president. The trial, which concluded in September 2025 with a guilty verdict, laid bare the premeditation involved. The two attempts in a single year, one nearly successful and the other thwarted, underscored a frightening new reality. The specter of presidential assassination was not a relic of history but a clear and present danger in the 21st century. Every attack, successful or failed, has served as a brutal lesson, forcing a constant and desperate evolution in presidential security. In the 19th century, protection was shockingly lax. Lincoln was guarded by a single police officer who had abandoned his post on the night of the assassination. After McKinley's death in 1901, the mandate given to the Secret Service transformed presidential safety into a federal science. The agency's mission grew from simply standing near the president to actively investigating threats, conducting advanced sweeps of locations and establishing perimeters. The open-top touring car, a symbol of accessibility, became a relic after the tragedy in Dallas. The era of the heavily armored presidential limousine, nicknamed the Beast, had begun. The attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan in 1981 marked another critical turning point. While agents reacted swiftly, the incident exposed vulnerabilities in controlling crowds and securing impromptu stops. In the aftermath, tactics were overhauled. Procedures for hospital evacuations were standardized. The use of magnetometers, or metal detectors, became standard practice at any event with the president, fundamentally changing the public's access to their leaders. The image of the president wading into an unsecured crowd became a memory. Security became a visible, often imposing buffer zone. A necessary shield of agents, barricades, and technology designed to keep the president in a protective bubble. The recent attempts on Donald Trump in 2024 have triggered yet another security reevaluation. The Pennsylvania shooting, carried out from a significant distance, highlighted the growing threat of a sniper attack against a large open-air rally. It forced security planners to look beyond the immediate perimeter and consider rooftops and elevated positions hundreds of yards away. The second attempt in Florida, where a gunman was intercepted before he could fire, was a victory for proactive intelligence and surveillance. It showcased the modern Secret Service's reliance on a multi-layered defense, combining human observation, intelligence gathering, and counter-sniper teams to neutralize a threat before it materializes. This history is a grim chronicle of action and reaction, of vulnerability exposed and defenses hardened. Protecting a leader in a free society will always be a near-impossible balancing act. Absolute security would require total isolation, which is antithetical to democracy. Yet, as history has shown repeatedly, the cost of failure is catastrophic, capable of destabilizing the government and traumatizing the nation. The legacy of these attacks is written in the Secret Service's rulebook, visible in the armored vehicles and the ever-watchful eyes of the agents who form a human shield. They are a constant, solemn reminder that history can and does repeat itself, and that the duty to protect is a race against the next potential attacker.